Think about what would happen if the dollar lost its role as the default global currency. It might sound like fiction, but if you didn't know, it's already happening. BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa are creating their own payment systems to reduce reliance on the US dollar, and central banks are trying out digital currency. But how and why is this happening? And how will this change currency in the future? In this video, we'll look at how global economic power is changing our financial systems. The dollar became the world's reserve currency because countries trusted its stability. Because of this trust, the US could use sanctions to the SWIFT banking network. When the US removes a country from SWIFT, it loses access to many international transactions. In 2022, Russia experienced this after invading Ukraine. About 300 billion in Russian central bank assets were frozen and major banks lost access. The immediate impact was harsh. Russian companies faced difficulties with trade deals, which led to a significant drop in the value of the ruble. Then the G7, made up of the US, UK, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, and Japan, set an oil price cap, limiting Russia to selling crude at $60 per barrel. The plan was to reduce Russian revenue while maintaining global supply of oil. Yet, by mid-2024, Russia's GDP grew by 3.6%, surprising many people. How is this possible, you ask? Well, the country directed energy exports to China and India, taking payments in rubles and yuan instead of dollars. In 2023, trade between Russia and China hit 240 billion, reducing the effects of sanctions. Russia also developed ways to get around the limits. Some transactions moved to smaller payment systems, while others used cryptocurrencies or barter. When these countries worked together, they created systems that could bypass the dollar dominance. The long-term effect is quite easy to see. Each sanction pushes more nations to reduce their dollar reliance. China expanded the use of the yuan, while India looked into rupee-based trade. Even neutral countries began acting more carefully. Turkey, for instance, began converting some foreign reserves to gold. Russia's central bank raised rates to stabilize the ruble. This shows that economies can adapt when challenged. It's clear that reliance on the dollar now carries political risk. The more the US uses it as a weapon, the faster alternatives grow. Countries that once relied on the dollar for stability are diversifying so they can spread their currency risk. To understand today's changes, we need to see how the dollar gained this dominant role. The Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944 made the US dollar central to global trade by linking it to gold. But when Nixon ended gold convertibility in 1971, the dollar turned into a fiat currency. Now, the dollar's value relies only on trust in the US government. Now, that trust kept the system strong for decades, but these past few years have revealed its weaknesses. In March 2024, the dollar index dropped 1.7% during market volatility. BRICS nations have already begun creating alternatives. For example, in 2023, Saudi Arabia began accepting yuan for oil sales to China. Now, this was a big change from dollar-denominated crude. Indonesia followed by settling trades in local currencies with Malaysia and Thailand. Brazil increased non-dollar trade with Argentina. Meanwhile, India and Russia exchanged oil using rupees and dirhams. Combined BRICS digital payment volumes reached 3.25 trillion as these methods gained traction. Now, there are some real challenges. Settling trades in different currencies makes accounting complicated. Also, liquidity isn't stable outside the major pairs, but some exporters still prefer dollars for their stability. But BRICS Pay, launched in 2023, helps with this by allowing direct bank transfers between member states. This system bypasses SWIFT entirely, using digital wallets and QR codes. A Brazilian soybean seller can now receive yuan from a Chinese buyer without converting to dollars. Some technical problems still need to be solved. Settlement times average 48 hours compared to swift near instant transfers, and working with non-BRICS currencies isn't consistent. However, the bloc is growing. Ethiopia, Iran, and Egypt joined in 2024, adding new payment routes. This system also connects with China's cross-border interbank payment system, which handled 12 trillion in 2023. Remember, the focus is on diversification, not taking over the dollar. The dollar still plays a role, but it's no longer the only option. Saudi Arabia still prices most oil in dollars, but is quietly adding yuan options. India's rupee trade makes up under 10% of exports, but it is growing. The shift is slow because changing trillions in reserves takes time. Yet each new deal weakens the dollar's hold, showing that financial systems can break apart when alternatives appear. The next step and focus is technology. Central bank digital currencies could simplify these transactions while allowing more regulation. Across 130 countries, central banks are working on their own digital currency. This is the largest monetary experiment since the 1970s. Unlike cryptocurrencies, CBDCs are government issued and are designed to be programmable. China's digital yuan already processes 250 billion annually and lets authorities monitor transactions instantly. The European Central Bank plans to pilot a digital euro in 2025, contrasting Nigeria's e-naira with a mere 0.5% adoption rate. Programmable money allows for new controls. A digital dollar could block certain purchases or limit welfare spending to approved vendors. Brazil Drug's currency prototype automatically deducts taxes during transactions. Critics say this weakens financial privacy and invites surveillance. Meanwhile, AI firms are facing scrutiny for using Reddit posts and TikTok videos to train algorithms without compensation. Together, they show a drift towards central authority over digital information. BRICS Pay includes CBDC features through interoperable digital wallet. A Russian importer can scan a QR code to pay an Indian exporter directly in digital rupees and skip correspondent banks. This system reduces cross-border transfer fees from 6% to under 1%, while only 18 banks currently use the system. Blockchain keeps records secure but processes just 2,000 transactions per second, far fewer than Visa's 65,000. Which warns that competing currency blocks may harm trade stability. When Bretton Woods ended in 1971, it led to floating exchange rates and inflation spikes. Currency divisions could bring the same instability, made more complex by digital systems. In UK trials of a digital pound, 20% of respondents were concerned about possible government overreach, showing public distrust. Key technical issues have yet to be solved. CBDCs need strong infrastructure to prevent outrages, and interoperability between national systems is still a challenge. Singapore's Project Hubin proved blockchain can settle central bank payments but also revealed slow processing. The Bank for International Settlements found that 60% of wholesale CBDC projects face scaling problems. Yet, progress continues. 13 African countries now use China's digital yuan for commodity payments. And this also reduces the reliance on the dollar. Launched in 2020, the Bahamas Sand Dollar demonstrates small economies can build working CBDCs. These experiments prove that money is developing more quickly than regulations. The end of Bretton Woods created the dollar-centered system we use today. This change was more from a reactive move, not a structured plan. The move to digital currencies and new payment networks show that the next monetary system will come from careful planning instead of just a crisis. The dollar dominance is slowly falling apart as alternatives expand. Overall, this is what we learned. Saudi Arabia's oil deals in yuan and BRICS digital payment systems suggest movement to a multipolar financial future.